shockingly revealed. Millionaire's mother humiliated at party by daughter-in-law. Son's incredible spouse caught speaking up. The charity gala was a swirling tapestry of opulence, with the glimmer of crystal chandeliers competing for attention against the polished laughter of Connecticut's elite. Emily Simmons, poised and ready to speak, could feel the weight of anticipation in the air, the kind of tension that whispered about expectations and concealed judgments. Her heart raced, not from the prospect of speaking, but from the looming shadow of her mother-in-law, Geraldine, watching from across the room, her piercing gaze a reminder of the disdain that had festered ever since Emily had become part of this lavish family. That evening, with its assemblage of tailored suits and silken gowns, felt like a gaudy masquerade ball where the masks were slowly slipping away. "Tonight is a celebration of art and its power," she began, her voice laced with conviction, encapsulating her passion for teaching and creating. The audience, often distracted by their phones or the clinking of wine glasses, turned to her, curiosity sparking in their eyes. But before the moment could crystallize, Geraldine's laughter sliced through the air, sharp as glass. "Oh, Emily, darling, do you really think your doodles matter in this world? Look around you. We're here to change lives, not decorate the walls." Her words dripped with condescension that sent Emily's spirit plummeting. Humiliation drenched Emily, freezing her at the junction of anger and self-doubt, each heartbeat echoing louder than the cries for charity. The anger churned inside her, but it was the determination, the fierce resolve to reclaim her identity, that ignited her spirit. She felt a swell of emotions battling within her. Did she truly want to be accepted by this family? Or was it more about asserting her worth as an artist? Once driven by dreams of recognition, her heart trembled with the fear that Geraldine's words would echo far beyond the gala. The days that followed turned ominous, each tick of the clock amplifying her insecurities. She stumbled upon an art competition that could change her life, yet each brushstroke in her mind was tainted by Geraldine's derision. What if my art isn't good enough? The question gnawed at her, the weight of the family legacy pressing down like an anchor. I may fail, just like I do in their eyes. Each sleepless night spent in front of her canvas felt like a battle, with rage blending into white space, pushing her to create but tethered by the fear of disappointment. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Amid the clattering of dishes and soft whispers of family expectations, Emily found solace in an unexpected camaraderie with a ragtag group of local artists, their laughter puncturing her isolation. Their foil to elite pressures fueled her resolve. This eclectic tribe granted her a space to experiment, a sanctuary for her spirit to push against the opulent world she had tiptoed into. Each story shared was a seed planted in her heart, growing her determination to face the looming submission deadline. The weight of her unexpressed pain poured out, forming vivid colors against the canvas, igniting a rebellion she hadn't anticipated. But just as hope began to blossom, a devastating truth about Geraldine surfaced, dredging up ghosts from the past that could unravel the family quilt binding them together. Emily's chest tightened with fear, swirling doubts invading her creativity. At the fusion of ambition and trepidation, Emily stood on the brink. Would she confront her mother-in-law head-on, or would she drown in the legacy that sought to define her? The night of the competition approached, and with it, the ultimatum lay bare. Reclaim her spirit through art or surrender it all to the crushing weight of expectation. The morning of the competition arrived with a crispness in the air that hinted at change. As Emily stood before her easel, the sunlight pouring through the window illuminated the array of colors she had carefully chosen, the palette representing the spectrum of her emotions. Today was not merely about the art. It was about her journey toward self-acceptance and defiance against the scrutiny dangling over her like a storm cloud. The chatter of her artist friends echoed in her mind. reminding her of the round table gathering they had held the previous week. Their collective support had been a lifeline, each encouraging word lifting her spirits from the depths of uncertainty. "Art is your voice, Emily. Don't let anyone silence it," one of her peers had emphasized, giving her a firm yet understanding gaze. With those words in her mind, she tried to channel that determination into her strokes. Yet as she layered paint onto the canvas, memories of Geraldine's derision haunted her. The older woman's laughter still reverberated in her ears, a reminder of why tonight mattered so much. For every brushstroke that followed, Emily realized she was sculpting not just a piece of art, but a shield against the deprecation of the world around her. Each color, a testament to her struggle. Each stroke, a step toward reclaiming her identity and dispelling the doubt sown into her core. As the hours trickled away, she found herself entrenched in a relentless rhythm, a symphony of color and emotion. The doubts stirred at the edges of her consciousness, but the fiercer her resolve grew, the fainter their whispers became. Painting felt like an act of rebellion, the canvas absorbing her fury and despair, transforming them into something breathtaking. Yet a gnawing anxiety lurked beneath the surface. What if the judges couldn't see her vision? What if Geraldine was right, and her art was insignificant? Late afternoon settled in, tugging at Emily's focus as she brushed the final details on her work. She stepped back, her heart pounding as she surveyed what had emerged. The vibrant amalgamation of colors and shapes was a reflection of her internal chaos, yet also a revelation of her resilience. This was the moment, no longer just a competition, but a manifestation of her spirit. But moments before she could breathe in the victory of her creation, her phone buzzed on the table. It was a message from Geraldine. "I do hope you're planning to make it to the gala tonight. It's not just an art show, it's a representation of our family's legacy." The pressure rolled in like a tidal wave. Emily's mind raced. How could she reconcile this impending confrontation with the fortified version of herself she had cultivated? Did she dare to present her artwork and risk the possible derision from the very source of her fear? With the clock ticking, Emily weighed her decision. Would she showcase her work at the competition and subsequently let Geraldine's reaction dictate her fate? Or would she confront her mother-in-law on her own terms, standing tall against the very expectations that had sought to enslave her spirit? As doubt twisted within her, one truth emerged with strength. These choices would not define her, how she faced them would. She was not just on the brink of a competition, she was on the threshold of reclaiming her life. Tonight, all that divided her from the life she envisioned would stand against the powerful current of expectation. The competition awaited, and alongside it, a confrontation long overdue. The question loomed large. Whose legacy would she choose to embrace? Emily stood in front of her piece, the weight of her decision hanging heavily in the air. The vibrant colors swirling across the canvas felt like a contradiction to the turmoil brewing inside her. This artwork was not merely a display. It was her voice, saturated with conflicting emotions shaped over years of striving to break free from the shadows of expectation. She inhaled slowly, trying to center herself, grounding her resolve like the thick brush used to make the bold strokes on canvas. A rush of adrenaline coursed through her as she glanced at the clock. It was almost time to leave. The thought of presenting her art at the competition felt exhilarating, yet the impending confrontation with Geraldine loomed like a specter. Emily's fingers tightened around the edge of her easel. She wouldn't allow herself to be swept away by the current of fear that urged her to retreat into silence. The choice ahead was more complicated than a path of mere rejection or acceptance. It was about taking ownership. She needed to dismantle the oppressive weight of Geraldine's expectations that had clung to her for so long. Each moment in this space had been a battle, and the fight was no longer just with her mother-in-law, but with the part of herself that had learned to defer to others. Her resolve strengthened with each breath. She imagined stepping into the gallery, unveiling her work amidst the finest art, her art. Emily would stand proud, unyielding as the colors radiated her story to the world. But the idea was tinged with trepidation. What if her expression, her emotions, weren't enough to dispel the judgment that could follow? Yet wasn't this what she had been building toward? Each stroke of the brush symbolized a fracture released, an aspect of herself reclaimed. The art world could be brutal, but it could also be a space for raw honesty. If she could embrace her own unfinished edges and heartache, then perhaps so could the judges who scrutinized her work. This was her moment to dismantle the narrative that had dictated her life for too long. As she gathered her things and locked up her easel, she paused to look at her painting one last time. It glimmered under the fading light, infused with the essence of her struggle and triumph. With her heart pounding, she committed to facing both the judges and the family legacy that Geraldine embodied. She would present her art unapologetically. The cacophony of the gallery enveloped her as she arrived, a vibrant tapestry of emotions from artists and art lovers alike. Emily navigated through the crowd, drawing strength from the realization that she was not alone in this complex space. Art held its own language, one that could transcend judgment and social expectations if allowed to resonate authentically. She searched for the judges, the centerpiece of her fears. Yet as she spotted Geraldine across the room, a figure of poise and superiority, her heart sank. Seeing her there, cool and calculated, ignited a familiar impulse of self-doubt. And yet, as her mind flickered back to her work, she found her center again. It was time to reclaim her narrative, to stand firmly in her truth. A new energy coursed through her as she approached the judges, her resolve renewed. As they turned towards her, she felt the moment crystallize, the collision of her past and future. Yet before she could introduce her piece, an unexpected conversation erupted nearby, drawing everyone's attention. The buzz of curiosity swept through the crowd, and Emily's heart raced as she turned to see what was drawing everyone's gaze. What she encountered was far from what she anticipated, a revealing expression crossing Geraldine's face, one that threatened to unravel everything Emily planned to confront. Emily's pulse quickened as the murmur of the crowd grew louder, the electric tension drawing the attention of the entire gallery. All thoughts of her art faded into the background as she registered the scene unfolding before her. Geraldine stood rooted to the spot, her face pale and strained, as whispers spiraled like autumn leaves caught in a whirlpool around the onlookers. The woman who had always embodied grace and control seemed stripped of her armor, leaving her vulnerable. The unexpected incident had turned Geraldine's cool, collected presence into a spectacle, and with each passing second, Emily felt a chipping away of the pedestal she'd been forced to regard her mother-in-law from. Perhaps it was possible for them to be, if not equal, at least human. For a moment, Emily dared to imagine this as a turning point, an opportunity to right the scales of their relationship. But the fear of the unknown still loomed heavily in her mind. As the crowd attracted itself to Geraldine's discomfort, like a moth to a flame, Emily seized the moment. This was an unexpected distraction, a chance for her to step into her power, all the while thinking about her own artwork waiting just beyond the fray. The painting represented her, a reflection of her journey to reclaim her identity, her voice. But how could she properly present it now amidst the chaos? An internal struggle rippled through her. Was this the moment to confront Geraldine, to challenge the deep-seated dynamics of their relationship, or was it wiser to wait for a more opportune time to assert herself? The churning inside her felt like a whirlpool, yanking her back and forth, fear and determination locked in a tumultuous dance. As Emily turned her gaze to the judges, their expressions mirrored her own confusion, but she also caught glimpses of curiosity sparking in their eyes. For the first time, she realized that they weren't just there to scrutinize, they were also individuals with their own complexities. They might even be drawn to her art, not only as an object but as a story, just as she was. Geraldine had always seemed larger than life, her towering expectations casting long shadows over Emily's pursuits. Yet watching her now, visibly unnerved, allowed Emily to taste a hint of empowerment that had long eluded her. The very source of her trepidation was now an exposed figure. The ironclad persona cracked, revealing the fragile human beneath. Then a flicker of resolve ignited within her. Rather than allowing the chaos to drown her, she would rise above it. Emily took a deep breath, feeling the swell of her emotions coalesce into purposeful clarity. No longer would she be a mere reflection of Geraldine's ideals. Tonight, she would reveal her own. With newfound purpose, she stepped toward the gallery space, approaching the judges, all of whom were still momentarily dazed by the unfolding drama. Emily couldn't allow Geraldine's humiliation to overshadow her presence any longer. This was about her voice in this tumultuous world of expectations. "Thank you for your patience," she began, her voice steady, despite the anxiety thrumming in her veins. "I would like to present my piece titled Unraveled." The title hung in the air, reverberating with the unspoken struggles and triumphs woven into each color on her canvas. As she unveiled the painting, a hush enveloped the room, the moment a mix of vulnerability and sheer defiance. The cacophony of Geraldine's earlier distress faded behind the pulsating heartbeat of Emily's truth, cascading fearlessly into the open. Yet, as the judges leaned forward, intrigued but cautious, Emily's gaze drifted back to Geraldine. The woman, still encased in a storm of wit and condescension, was glaring at her. The glimmer of competition igniting between them was unmistakable. The time had come to face not just the judges, but the fierce woman who stood as both adversary and reminder of what had burdened her for far too long. With her heart racing, Emily sensed the fragile balance of power shift. She had taken the first step. Now it was no longer just about revealing her art. It was about confronting the weight of expectation that threatened to collapse her under its oppressive gravity. But before she could gather her thoughts and dive deeper, a shattering crash disrupted the undulating tension in the room. An object slipping from a judge's hand shattered not only the glass, but the moment's gravity, landing Emily squarely in a fresh wave of anxiety. What did this new chaos mean for her confrontation? Would it send her spiraling back into the shadows, or open a door to yet another unexpected revelation? Emily's heart thudded in her chest, drowning out the sound of the glass shattering on the floor. The sharp sound punctured the air, drawing all eyes back to the judges, who were scrambling to collect themselves as the fragments of glass glinted like tiny broken stars at their feet. The moment was disorienting, and for a heartbeat she felt a surging tide of fear clashing painfully with her resolve. This wasn't just her moment to speak out anymore. It was a reminder that chaos often rooted itself in unexpected places. Would the tension suffocate her burgeoning confidence before it could take breath? She steeled herself, focusing on the weight of her own voice, rather than the disarray around her. "Please allow me to explain my piece," Emily interjected, her voice cutting through the murmurings. A few heads turned toward her, caught momentarily by the authority present in her tone. "Unraveled represents not just my struggles, but also the unfurling of expectations, the ones we impose on ourselves and those we inherit from others." As she spoke, she sensed a shift not just within herself, but within the gallery. There was a subtle drawing together of threads, a tapestry being woven from individual stories. With each phrase, Emily felt the fear that had lodged itself in her throat begin to dissipate. She was no longer just a spectator in her own narrative. She was becoming the author. Geraldine's icy demeanor hadn't thawed, but the glimmer of disdain in her eyes transformed, joining forces with something akin to caution. For the first time, Emily glimpsed a crack in Geraldine's facade, a hint of realization that her daughter-in-law was not to be dismissed. But the judge whose hand had slipped was still struggling to regain composure, fostering a backdrop of uncertainty that Emily knew could work in her favor. She continued, her thoughts tumbling over each other in a calculated frenzy. What we create often reflects our deepest conflicts. In this piece, the colors intertwine, break apart, and clash with one another. Just as in life, where chaos proves to be a powerful catalyst for change. Emily noticed several heads nodding, her words finding purchase within their inquisitive minds. With each passing second, her confidence grew. Here was a moment of reckoning, not just for Geraldine, but for herself. The crowd, once so captivated by chaos, began to re-engage with her art. She brought them back to the depths of her canvas, describing the nuances that led her to choose each stroke, each hue. It was a reflection of her freedom in the face of expectation, a journey away from the shadows cast by others. As she caught Geraldine's eyes again, the image of vulnerability she had seen earlier flickered into view once more, though now tinged with an indignant recognition. There was something stirring in the air, an uneasy confrontational energy, and Emily felt it, a new understanding blossoming between them, coated in silent challenges. But before she could dive deeper into the battle of wills, the hovering tension snapped. A judge broke the silence, a smile creeping across her lips. "You've certainly given us much to think about with Unraveled. It's as if the painting itself is alive." Emily's breath hitched in her throat. She had affirmed her identity, but uncertainty still lay in wait. Had the judges truly seen her? Was this validation merely a fleeting moment, or the beginning of newfound respect? Just as the bustling air began to settle back into the gallery, the vibrant energy of her art clashing with the residual panic from Geraldine, she prepared to delve into further discussion. Yet amidst the applause and murmurs of approval, she felt the familiar tempest arising within her, a mixture of desire for recognition and dread of retribution from Geraldine. What would her mother-in-law do next? As approval swirled with the possibility of confrontation, Emily sensed a storm brewing on the horizon of her developing self. It was here, under the weight of hope and fear, that she found the edge of her determination. In this fragile balance, she knew she had to choose her next words carefully, not just for the judges but for herself. What would it take to shift the narrative from Geraldine's looming shadow to the light of her own potent identity? With the echoes of applause carrying through the gallery, a new journey loomed ahead, a confrontation with not just Geraldine, but the very essence of her expectations, setting the stage for a decisive clash where both art and authenticity stood waiting to be unveiled. The applause faded, but the weight of expectation lingered like a thick fog in the air. Emily's heart continued to race, each beat echoing in the silence that followed the judge's comment. She had tasted a victory, however small, yet the looming presence of Geraldine threatened to unravel it all. Would her moment of triumph slip away, overshadowed by the relentless shadows of familial strains? As she stood there, fighting the urge to fidget, her mind spiraled through a storm of strategic thoughts. Geraldine, with her precise, calculating demeanor, had always been a force to reckon with. Today, however, something was different. Emily felt herself stepping into a role of strength rather than mere submission. This was her chance to set boundaries, to assert her identity beyond the labels imposed by marriage and maternal expectations. "Thank you," Emily finally said to the judge, a flame of confidence igniting her voice. "I believe art is meant to provoke discussion and challenge perceptions. What you've said is a reminder that my work resonates beyond mere aesthetics. It touches on the human experience." The judges nodded, their eyes flickering with genuine intrigue. Yet, the moment was interrupted as she turned to face Geraldine directly. A tethering of deep-rooted conflict surged between them. This exchange was not merely about art anymore, it was about autonomy. "Perhaps," Emily continued, her voice unwavering, "you could share what you see in the piece, Geraldine. I would love to hear your thoughts." This invitation was not just polite, it was a challenge. Geraldine's reaction would reveal whether her opinion was meant to intimidate or to engage. The rattle of the gallery's bustling energy shifted as spectators leaned in, eager for a confrontation. Geraldine's eyes narrowed, her composure cracking like a porcelain mask. "I don't see the need to engage in a discussion that merely allows you to deflect attention from reality," she snapped, her tone slicing through the air. "Art can be beautiful, but it is often a glorified distraction, a means to avoid facing one's true responsibilities." Emily felt a wave of indignation rise. This was not just a strike against her artistry, it was a call for her to retreat into the shadows. Yet, in that moment, she realized this confrontation had less to do with her and more about Geraldine's fears. "Are you suggesting that my journey isn't valid, that facing my struggles through art is a distraction?" Emily's tone was steady, imbued with a measured defiance. "If anything, this journey has ignited my desire to confront those very expectations you speak of. I've sought to understand what lies beneath them." The gallery held its breath, time almost suspending in the wake of her words. There it was, her revelation. Art wasn't just the canvas, it was about unveiling deeper truths, the very truths Geraldine refused to acknowledge. Geraldine shifted, visibly ruffled by Emily's unyielding stance. Emily had given voice to the vulnerability that Geraldine masked with sharp criticism. It was a revelation not just for her audience, but for herself. Emily was more than just an artist. She was a resilient individual redefining her place in the world. "I admire your tenacity, Emily," one judge interjected, eyeing Geraldine with scrutiny. "But the real question is, how does this painting truly represent you?" The atmosphere thickened with unspoken tensions, and Emily felt the undeniable urge to reveal her entire self, how the colors danced around the chaos of her past, embodying not just her triumphs, but her failures too. In that moment of vulnerability, she dared to confront the narrative of her life. If she could harness the strength coursing through her, she could reclaim her voice and redefine her legacy, one brushstroke at a time. With a deep breath, Emily prepared to dive deeper into her world of art, revealing the layers that had always been unseen, waiting to be acknowledged. But just as she began to share more, Geraldine's icy composure returned, and a tension filled the space between them, a challenge that hinted at a further clash ahead. "Perhaps, my dear, you've misunderstood the power of reality," Geraldine replied, her voice almost honeyed, cloaked in menace. "You may think you're coming into your own, but there's much you still don't understand." The stakes hung in the air, taut and electric. Emily grappled with the choices laid before her. Would she bend to expectations yet again, or stand firm in her burgeoning identity? With the audience poised for a deeper exploration, Emily felt the resolve within her harden. The time had come for a confrontation not just with Geraldine, but with the very expectations that had shaped her existence. The moment of truth was approaching, one that would define her path forward, challenging everything she thought she knew about herself. Emily inhaled sharply, her heart pounding in tandem with the restless pulse of the gallery. The air felt charged, as if a tempest brewed not just within her, but in the minds of the onlookers. She could sense their curiosity, almost palpable, a living entity pressing against her, urging her to reveal more. "What you call reality," she began, each word sharpened like a sculptor's chisel, "I see as a fence. You want me to cower behind it, Geraldine, and stay tethered to a version of myself that no longer feels authentic." The way she spoke reshaped the tension around them, forging an unbreakable bond between her words and her emerging resolve. Geraldine's eyes blazed with indignation. The slight lifting of her chin belied a sense of superiority that Emily had long resented. This was a dance she was tired of performing, and with each confrontational exchange, Emily felt the weight of those vibrant hues she used on canvas meld into her very soul. "I can't deny the power of my surroundings, or the expectations that shaped me," Emily continued, her heart now a battle drum pounding with increasing conviction. "But rather than bow to them, I choose to reflect them, to confront them head-on." The audience stirred, eager to witness the outcome of this duel. Emily scanned their faces. Curiosity, admiration, even empathy mingled throughout the crowd. In that instant, she realized she was crafting a narrative not just for herself, but for those who witnessed her struggle. They were not merely observers, they were participants in her evolution. Then, with a flicker of vulnerability that surprised even her, Emily leaned into her narrative. "It was in the chaos of my upbringing, the turbulent events that shaped my youth, that I discovered my voice. I ventured where silence lived, painted where shadows loomed." Her hands gestured as if unveiling layers on an invisible canvas, thoughts pouring forth without restraint. "This painting, it embodies both my grief and my triumph. Each color drips with the unspoken truths of compromise and the desperate pursuit of authenticity." Geraldine faltered slightly, her facade marred by uncertainty. Emily seized the moment. "I'm not simply your daughter-in-law lost in the background. I am an artist fighting for her place in both this world and the one waiting behind the canvas." But beneath this newfound strength lay an unsettling realization. What if this confrontation was merely the beginning? What if the walls she was breaking down only led to a new realm of expectations? The thought burrowed under Emily's confidence, a chilling whisper that warned of unforeseen consequences. "I'll admit, "There's much I have yet to understand," she continued with quiet ferocity, "but I do not need to fear your version of reality. I am determined to carve out my own." A moment passed, pregnant with meaning. Could she navigate the waters of her emerging identity without sacrificing all she held dear? Her instincts told her she had to break away from Geraldine's shadow once and for all, yet a flicker of hesitation danced in the corners of her mind, urging caution. As she stood there, caught between the vibrant tapestry of her artistic spirit and the weighty expectations of family obligations, she felt the power of choice enveloping her. "I'll define my own legacy, one that honors my journey and isn't clouded by the burdens of others' realities," she declared, her courage shifting the atmosphere palpably. The judges leaned forward. However, Emily's gaze remained locked with Geraldine's. A duel of wills, each woman tethered to their ideologies. It was an unspoken promise of a fierce struggle yet to come, a battle to redefine what it meant to exist within this family, while staying true to herself. Then, just as a ripple of applause began to swell in response to her proclamation, Geraldine's voice sliced through once more, as cold as ice. "Legacy. You only see shadows, Emily. Just remember that sometimes the truths beneath the surface are far more devastating than you're willing to confront." Emily's breath hitched, the weight of Geraldine's words landing heavily. She wasn't merely facing a rival, she was unearthing deeper fissures within her own understanding. As the audience's murmurs changed the tone of the environment, she felt an impending storm of self-discovery linger in the air, thick with unresolved tension. What truths were lying beneath her painted canvas, waiting to emerge? Would she find the courage to confront them, even if they threatened to uproot everything she thought she knew? The stakes had risen, and the next chapter of her journey was poised on the precipice of revelation. As the applause faded, Emily felt a hollow echo reverberating in her chest. The audience was still there, still watching, but now their expressions had shifted. There was surprise, uncertainty, and an unmistakable sense that the stakes had never been higher. Emily's heart raced, not with triumph, but with an unsettling cocktail of fear and exhilaration. What had she truly unleashed in that moment of vulnerability? Geraldine's piercing gaze remained locked on her, a simmering cauldron of judgment that threatened to boil over. The words lingered between them like dense fog, each syllable a challenge. What unsettling truths did her mother-in-law hide beneath layers of opulence and expectation? Emily's mind raced as she tried to navigate her path forward. The price of authenticity was becoming all too clear, and she found herself grappling with an increasing sense of isolation. She walked to the back of the gallery, seeking refuge among the vibrant colors and textures she'd created. Each stroke of paint had been a gesture of rebellion against the shackles of her upbringing, but the gallery now felt like a gilded cage. Emily took a deep breath, centering herself amidst the chaos of her swirling emotions. She needed clarity to confront what lay ahead. "Moments like this can define you, Emily," she whispered, addressing herself more than anything. It was an almost desperate invocation to steel her resolve. With a flick of her wrist, she grabbed her paintbrush, dipped it into the palette, and joined the cacophony of colors swirling on the canvas before her. The act drew her in, grounding her as she began to outline forms that represented her confusion, twisting shapes, turbulent lines, bold yet vulnerable hues. Each brush stroke became a silent dialogue with her deepest self, inviting her to confront what lay beneath the surface. As the painting took shape, she found herself wondering just how much of her own narrative was shaped by the unyielding expectations of her family. Was she merely a reflection of what they wanted her to be? The chilling realization hit her. Every color in her artwork was a fragment of her truth, painstakingly constructed from years of quiet rebellion against the confines set by Geraldine and the family legacy. Emily's mind wandered to the notion of legacy. What if it wasn't merely an inheritance of property and status, but something rawer, more dynamic? A legacy of courage, of challenging the chains that defined her existence. This insight surged through her. It lit a fire, pushing away the icy grip of doubt. She could reject the surface-level family truths and carve out a new legacy forged from her experiences. Just then, a rustle behind her caused her to turn sharply. One of the judges stepped closer, a man she recognized from the art world, known for his brutally honest critiques. "Emily," he began, his voice low and steady, "I've seen your growth tonight, but I sense there's something more profound waiting to be fully expressed. What are you truly afraid of discovering?" The question hung in the air, electrifying tension resuming its grip on her. It was a spotlight that exposed her vulnerabilities, yet she felt the compelling urge to answer it. She could either hide in the shadows of Geraldine's expectations or boldly dive into the unknown. As she opened her mouth to respond, the walls of self-doubt began to tremble. Now is the time for radical honesty, she thought, almost daring herself to unearth the deeper truth lurking beneath her self-constructed framework. Whatever revelations would surface could not be ignored any longer. Would she dare confront not just Geraldine's intransigence, but also the intricacies of her own identity? This was the moment where art could reconcile pain, joy, and conflict into a singular expression of who she truly was. The expression on the judge's face signaled his anticipation, and with each passing second, the realization crystallized. The battle for her own legacy was not merely against Geraldine's expectations, but against the comforting yet stifling narratives woven into her very being. With newfound purpose, she prepared to answer, her heart pounding in rhythm with the pulse of her imagination, wondering how deep the wounds went and what truths she would confront. But would the consequences of confronting those truths forge a new path for her, or shatter everything she had built thus far? The air thick with uncertainty, Emily felt the moment building towards an inevitable climax, the inquiry now looming larger than herself, overdue and tantalizingly terrifying. The resolution of this internal struggle beckoned tantalizingly from beyond the frame of her canvas. Emily inhaled deeply as she faced the judge, feeling the weight of the moment bear down on her shoulders. Fear and determination intertwined, creating an electrifying tension. There was no turning back now. The boundaries she had constructed to shield herself were dissolving, and she felt raw, vulnerable, yet strangely empowered. "I'm afraid of losing myself," she finally admitted, her voice steady but laced with undercurrents of fear. "I've spent so long trying to be what everyone else wants that I've forgotten what I want." The vulnerability in her words felt like both a relief and a risk. They hung in the air, heavy, demanding acknowledgement. The judge nodded slowly, his eyes searching hers, as if trying to assess the authenticity of her revelation. "Then it's time to find out what that really means. Authenticity will attract both praise and criticism, but it is essential. Are you ready to face the consequences?" Each word resonated inside her, emphasizing the importance of the moment. She was standing on the precipice of her identity, an uncharted territory that promised both liberation and distasteful truth. "Yes," she affirmed, her voice gaining strength. "I want to confront the expectations, the facade. But how do I start?" "By creating something that reflects your raw self," he replied, gesturing towards the canvas emerging from her chaos. "Use the pain, the joy, the confusion, and make it your art. A true work of yourself, unfiltered." His words wrapped around her like a lifeline, allowing her to ignite the embers of her creativity. Emily returned to the canvas, gripping the brush as if it were an extension of her will. As she moved, she felt liberated from the threat of judgment, first from Geraldine, then from the audience, and now even from herself. Each swirl and stroke felt cathartic, a release of pent-up emotion and a transmutation of her struggles into something tangible. In the relentless motions, she delved deeper into her experiences. She invited the heavy emotions, her frustrations with the gilded world that dictated her choices, the fear of not measuring up, the desire for affirmation, but also the excitement of potential. The painting transformed into an explosion of color, each hue a chapter of her life, and each twist a reflection of her fight against suffocating expectations. Yet, even amidst her fervor, doubt still lingered. What would Geraldine say? Would her family dismiss this as mere childish rebellion? As her brush flew across the canvas, Emily questioned the validity of her fears. Would their opinions define her? No. She saw her worth as separate from her lineage, untethered from judgments that had dictated her actions for so long. The painting surged toward completion, a striking interplay of dark and light that mirrored her journey. It became a testament to her struggle, an anthem proclaiming her resilience and newfound individuality. But just as she stepped back to survey her creation, the gallery door swung open. Geraldine strolled in, regal and unbending, her expression a storm of disapproval mixed with intrigue. "What is this nonsense, Emily?" Geraldine's voice cut through the air like a blade. "You think this will impress anyone?" Emily felt her heart drop, but instead of crumbling, the confrontation sent a surge of strength coursing through her veins. "This is me," she asserted, her voice steady and unyielding, "and I won't hide any longer." The challenge hung between them, electricity crackling in the air around the two women. The confrontation had the potential to erupt into chaos, fracturing long-standing illusions. Emily's gaze hardened as she stood before the embodiment of her past, ready to defend her art, and more importantly, herself. The moment demanded an answer to an unspoken question that loomed large. Would she stand firm in her authenticity or buckle under the weight of familial expectations? With every second counting down, Emily felt the impending confrontation clash with her hopes for self-acceptance. But did she possess the fortitude to nurture her truth amidst the inevitable backlash? Her heart thrummed a rhythm of determination, and with it, she braced herself for the inevitable fight that could redefine the course of her legacy. With an unwavering gaze, Emily squared her shoulders, feeling the full weight of the moment crash over her. But instead of crumbling, she felt liberation gather within her. "Yes, this is nonsense if you choose to see it that way," she replied, her voice ringing clear. "But for me, it's everything." Geraldine's brow furrowed, a mix of indignation and confusion on her face as she took a step toward the canvas, eyes scanning the vibrant, chaotic swirls that represented Emily's inner life. Emily watched as her mother-in-law's lips parted, prepared to deliver a sharp retort, but the words failed to materialize. A flicker of uncertainty passed over Geraldine's facade, revealing a crack in the ironclad armor that had always shielded her from vulnerability. Something shifted. The tension hung heavy, but within it, Emily felt a sense of purpose crystallize. This moment wasn't solely about her artwork. It was an embodiment of years of struggle, a manifestation of the chaos and clarity of her journey toward authenticity. "I'm not asking for your approval," Emily continued, emboldened by her defiance. "This painting isn't about impressing anyone or conforming to expectations. It's about me reclaiming my voice, my narrative in a world that has often told me to stay silent." Her courage poured into the room like paint on canvas, saturating the atmosphere with unfiltered truth. The crowd, still drawn into the charged dynamic between them, began to murmur, captivated not only by the engagement, but also by the rawness of Emily's emotion. Geraldine's jaw tightened, but she remained silent, an unexpected silence that offered Emily much-needed fuel. Here was an opportunity to merge her art with her unrelenting sense of self. As the colors danced on the canvas, Emily recalled the progression of her evolution. Gone was the timid woman who had sought Geraldine's acceptance, wishing for validation through her art merely as a reflection of another's expectations. Instead, this day she stood resolute, a woman transformed through her struggles and artistry. "Art," she said with fervor, "is not about proving oneself to others. It's a conduit for communication. It allows us to explore and share our most intimate truths." She took a breath, steadying herself as she continued, "I'm not only battling your expectations, Geraldine, I'm battling my own, a legacy I've chosen, a legacy that prioritizes my voice over the shadows of your approval." The gallery buzzed and swayed around them, but in her core Emily felt an immense calm. She was no longer overshadowed by doubt or fear, no longer a mere object in Geraldine's world. She was an artist fully alive, sparking interactions with the onlookers, who sensed the significance of this duel. Geraldine shifted, visibly taken aback, and in that moment, something shifted within her too. Instinctively, the rest of the crowd began nodding in agreement. Emily's sentiments echoed with an energy that could not be ignored, subverting the carefully curated image Geraldine had crafted. The tension crackled as the judges, recognizing the turning tide, exchanged glances, intrigued by the evolution emerging before their eyes. Emily remained anchored in the moment, with her heartbeat drumming a fierce tempo of resilience, a realization dawning on her that this confrontation reached far beyond the canvas or the immediate conflict. Our legacies should be defined by our journey to self-discovery, even the parts that challenge the expectations of family and tradition, she concluded with a firmness that echoed through the gallery. We all bear the weight of unfulfilled expectations, either imposed by ourselves or by others, but to break free is the most courageous act of all. As she stepped back, the energy in the room shifted, a wave of understanding rippling among the audience. They were not merely witnesses of an artist's unveiling, they were partakers in a poignant moment of liberation. Geraldine, shaken by her daughter-in-law's boldness, seemed to grapple with the implications of Emily's proclamation, her expression softening slightly as the truth began to transverse the generations. In that charged silence, there grew a dawning awareness among all present, the realization of how so many had waded through the waters of expectation, seeking their own voices. Emily's piece, once veiled by the weight of doubt, now stood proud and unyielding, a declaration that would transcend the personal, carrying a collective promise of independence. Finally, breaking the tension, the judge who had first spoken stepped forward, his expression a blend of admiration and realization. You've drawn a brilliant parallel between art and identity, making it clear that true artistry is birthed from confrontation. Emily, your work challenges us to reconsider the legacies we inherit and what we choose to do with them. A swell of applause erupted, crashing through Emily like the first wave of spring sunshine washing over winter's remnants. This was validation, not just of her art, but of her journey, her newfound commitment to living authentically. Geraldine lingered on the edge of acceptance, her expression now one of reluctant acknowledgement. Emily felt a shift within the dynamic of their relationship, perhaps a nascent understanding waiting to blossom amid the cracks of their friction. As the evening continued, conversations among the attendees ranged from art to identity, sparking a kind of dialogue Emily had always yearned for, yet hesitated to initiate. Surrounded by warmth and compassion, she felt the echoes of her struggles evolve into a confidant, an affirmation that she was not solely defined by the expectations of others. Underneath the glimmering lights of the gallery, amidst art and acknowledgement, Emily Simmons stood transformed, a true artist not merely confined to expectations, but defined especially by a bold stroke of resilience and authenticity. She had conquered her fears and reclaimed her narrative. Now Emily had not only painted a vivid picture of herself on canvas, but had liberated her voice to fill her life, no longer merely seeking approval, but standing steadfast in her right to belong to herself. And with that, she had achieved something far beyond recognition. She had achieved the gift of true belonging. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. This is the moment to make your impact. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice is crucial to our community. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. It's time to inspire others with stories of personal overcoming.